Hi guys, a warm welcome to the Duke here in Nistelrode and a warm welcome to this 1977 Range Rover. As you can see, a very early example and actually one of the very first SUVs, the very first sports utility vehicles. The car initially was introduced like this, so as a 3-door. It never was a 5-door to begin with, and only later, somewhere in the 80s, Range Rover decided to add the rear doors, so to speak. Let's have a look at this very early example that was kindly lent to us by the great people of Legendary Classics. The car is for sale there in Atelier in the south of the Netherlands. Looking at the car from the front, you see this very horizontal setup. Very clean, but just lovely in its proportions and in its details. Car designers regard cars in 3 different levels. First, about 10 meters away, the proportions, let's say the outline. The second layer is surfacing, so the skin of the car. And the last layer, very important still, is jewelry, details. So, looking at the proportions of the car, if we walk towards the side here, what is very apparent is the large amount of glass on top and a relatively small amount of body underneath. The greenhouse versus the body is nearly 50-50, one would even argue. Very typical of cars in this era. Cars in the 60s, the 70s all had these big greenhouses. But it gives the car a friendly and open appearance and makes the interior very airy. There's a lot of light inside. It might look like a car designed with a ruler 100% straight, but it's actually not. And it's what makes this specific Range Rover such a special car. It is actually slightly tapered towards the back. None of these lines are 100% straight. That's why this car looks so elegant, so friendly, so well proportioned. If we come a bit closer, we've had a bit of the proportions. I'd like to show you this interesting part of the surfacing of the skin of the car. This lovely 3-dimensional way of treating the corner of the bonnet. And one could even argue that this is a very typically British element. Think of Rolls Royces, they still feature this. Bentleys even. And still, again, Range Rover. Very typical and very interesting, very iconic even. If we look at the side of the car again, and we compare the volumes of the greenhouse, the glass, versus the body on this car from 1977, versus Adventum Coupe here, and you see, obviously, the main design ideas are very well translated from the original car, still very horizontally orientated. But you see the greenhouse, the amount of glass versus the body, has completely changed. This is a very modern way of looking at car designs. The amount of glass is getting smaller and the amount of body is getting significantly bigger over the years. Let's go back to this original 3.5 liter V8 and have a look at the interior, which is rather special too. There you go. A very horizontal, very clean, minimalistic setup. But specifically for the 70s, rather comfortable. Great seats. And compared to the base car, basically the chassis of an original Land Rover, this was very luxurious indeed. This lovely Bakelite steering wheel, very typical of its days. And look at how thin the rim is compared to a modern steering wheel. What this actually does, and I know Rolls-Royce actually deliberately designs its steering wheel still by this day actually to be very thin, is because it makes you hold the steering wheel and with that drive the car in a different manner. Rather than grabbing the steering wheel and being a bit more aggressive towards your input towards the car, you hold it elegantly. And that makes sure you will drive this car as a gentleman. If If we look beyond the steering wheel, we see this lovely instrument panel. Look at the nice amount of detail, a great font, and lovely facets, a great amount of detail, or jewelry perhaps, in the interior. And if we move down, we see the two gearboxes, a low range and a high range gearbox, and a relatively plush, specifically again for its days, interior. A lot of carpet, all nicely upholstered. And if we move out here, we have a look at the door panel. A very clean design, with obviously a grab handle here, just to close the door as a driver. And here one can open the door. But then if we move backwards a bit, it's the same setup. So those who are getting into the back of the car can close the door and they can open it. Very unique, a great feature, and actually the entire unit is the same left to right. So it's a very smart design. It's one unit that can be applied to both the door on the left hand side and on the right hand side. This is such a unique feature that the owner and the gentleman that took the initiative for Adventum Coupe said, well, why don't we implement that again? So let's have a look at how we designed that into Adventum Coupe. There you go. The same horizontally oriented door panel. You can open the door here, or here if you're getting out from the back. A very nice gesture of Legendary Classics to lend us this lovely motor vehicle for today. So a great shout out to them. This car is for sale in Atelier in the Netherlands. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.